After watching this video, you should be able to pass the PFA World War II, European theater, and the end of war in Europe. They just kind of start off with Dunkirk. At this time, the Nazis had pretty much conquered um, all of Europe except for Great Britain. Britain, after being defeated and surrounded by Nazi troops on a small peninsula in France, the remaining Allied army escaped to Britain on hundreds of thousands of volunteer boats. It's a great story. There's also a really good movie about it called Dunkirk. It came out last year. You should check it out. So after Hitler has control of Europe, basically just Great Britain, it's kind of standing in his way of conquering Europe. So bombing raids on London by Germany caused significant civilian casualties in Great Britain during World War II. They're going to continue all throughout. But despite suffering severe structural and physical damage during its conflict with Nazi Germany, Great Britain never surrendered. The 1940 Battle of Britain was a decisive World War II conflict, largely because it established the superiority over Britain's Royal Air Force over the German Luftwaffe over here. Germany had more planes, but what Great Britain did have was they used new technology at the time, which was radar, so they could better use their resources. Fighting in Russia and the Battle of Stalingrad. So just back like when Napoleon invaded Russia a couple hundred years before or so, when the Nazis decided to invade Russia, the Soviet troops burned down their own farms and destroyed supplies so that Germans would not have anything to eat when they invade Russia. Another thing Stalin does, Stalin is the leader of, or is a dictator of the Soviet Union, and in Russia, it's the same thing. Stalin's ordered 227 forced Soviet soldiers to fight to the death and resist the Germans. The big battle here is the Battle of Stalingrad that we'll focus on in this PFA. Stalin doesn't want to lose Stalingrad. He changed the city, a Russian city, to his name. It had a lot of important factories. So the Nazi troops almost completely destroy Stalingrad. But they're unable to capture the city at great cost of life. One thing that helps is the prolonged, harsh winter. It helps defeat Germany. So at a cost of more than 1.1 million lives, the Soviet Union issues the first defeat of Nazi Germany at the Battle of Stalingrad. And this battle also had the highest rate of human casualties of World War II. So Russia over here. During World War II, the Soviet Union urged its allies to launch a military offensive against Germany. From the Western Front, this would be the Western Front over here. The main purpose is the request was to force Germany to fight a two-front war. They have a lot of resources going into Russia at that time. That way, Germany would have to focus some of its resources over here. And eventually this does happen. June 6, 1944, or D-Day, or the Normandy invasion. The invasion of Normandy is considered a turning point in World War II because the invasion positioned the Allied forces to begin the Western European campaign. Kind of the march to Germany. They have two questions you could possibly get. June 6, 1944, or D-Day. Why is it significant? It's the largest land and sea attack in history. And the same question reworded. Which World War II battle involved the greatest mobilization of land and sea forces? It's the Battle of Normandy. So jumping ahead, there's a lot of great important battles that happen, but they're kind of focusing on some of the higher points. The Yalta Conference. The Yalta Conference was held prior to the end of World War II and was attended by these three leaders, Stalin, Roosevelt, and Churchill. The Yalta Conference is going to be held in February 1945. Remember, the war in Europe doesn't end until May. They're going to start this process to discuss the peaceful rebuilding of Europe. Another important part of this Yalta Conference was to determine what would happen after Germany surrendered. This is when the Allies start to learn that Russia's probably not going to play nice after the war ends. Jumping ahead a couple months, the Battle of Berlin is the final significant battle of World War II European theater. This is where Hitler kills himself, and then the Soviets kind of conquer the city of Berlin. At the end of the conflict, the war comes to the end of the conflict happened on May 8th, 1945. This is the end of the war in European theater. Remember today is VE Day, our Victory in Europe Day. Remember that's May 8th, 1945, our VE Day. So the war, World War II, is not going to end until about the end of August. Human cost to World War II, approximately 400,000 people serving in the United States military were killed in World War II. The overall loss of life caused by World War II is estimated at approximately 70 to 80 million people. Russia is the country in European theater World War II that suffered the greatest military personal losses. Russia, the country itself, it's estimated they lost about 60 million people. Civilian and military deaths during World War II would have been far greater if not been for the discovery of penicillin right around the start of the war. Holocaust. In addition to those who had died in combat, nearly 2 out of 3 European Jews were killed during World War II by the Nazis as part of their final solution of European Jews. Many Nazis were tried for the war crimes in the city of Nuremberg. These trials were also known as the Nuremberg Trials. The Potsdam Conference of July 1945 between the United States, Britain, and the Soviet Union decided how Eastern Europe would be divided and governed. This conference also included Joseph Stalin and President Harry S. Truman. Regarded post-war Europe management and war operations. German territory was divided into occupied zones as a result of the Potsdam Conference. So remember, World War II isn't going to end. There's still a conflict going on in Japan. Also, there's a lot really awesome information about World War II that you can look up on your own that is not covered in this PFA. You should be able to pass the PFA after watching this video. The slides are made from questions. Thank you.